Welcome gallery staff and councillors to our June ordinary meeting. I'll open the meeting with acknowledgement of country. Richmond Valley Council recognises the people of the Bundjalung Nations as custodians and traditional owners of this land, and we value and appreciate the continuing culture, connections to lands, their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region in the past, present and the future. Mr General Manager, could you read the prayer please?
Dear Lord, we meet to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly and to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognise our responsibility to the past and the future and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. May we act wisely and well. Amen.
Amen. Public access and question time. I believe we have one today, and that is Dr. Richard Gates. I'd like to invite Mr. Gates to come up, please, and item 14.2. And I believe, Dr. Gates, you have a presentation? When you're ready, you know the rules and the regulations, so there's no need to go through those. Well, welcome.
Right, thank you. Sorry. That's what? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Councillors, Mayor, General Manager, staff and gallery. I'm going to speak today about the item on the Evanshead Beach or Evanshead to Ballina Beach access. It's now 44 years since the House of Representatives Standing Committee on Environment and Conservation released its report, Off-Road Vehicle Impact on the Australian Environment. The committee took more than 2,000 pages of evidence during the public hearings. Even then, there was an increase in public expression of concern at the growing environmental damage and social nuisance caused by off-road vehicles in various areas, including beaches. Many of the issues canvassed in that Standing Committee report are still with us today. Restriction of vehicular access. I wonder if you might just push that button for me. Sorry, I lost that. Many of the issues canvassed in that Standing Committee report are still with us today. Restriction of vehicular use in areas with high nature conservation value and in fragile environments such as vegetated sand dunes. Impact of vehicle use on the physical environment and social environment, including littering and vandalism, disturbance and loss of wildlife, loss of vegetation, damage to Aboriginal sites, clash of recreational activity with non-vehicle users, including fishermen, complaining that their enjoyment of the environment was being destroyed by off-road vehicles, including four-wheel drives and motorbikes, problems of regulatory compliance and inadequacy of staff presence, particularly during holiday time when visits are high, and signs prohibiting vehicle use in particular areas being usually only effective when backed up by frequent patrols by enforcement officers and non-homogeneity in beach users. We are all not the same and have different motivations for use of the beach, with a minority destroying it for the rest of us who follow the rules. The Standing Committee formed the view that a large section of the community regards public land as being available to them as a right, with that attitude clearly flowing through to a small number not seeing themselves as being the cause or object of restrictions. Quote, they quite often agree with restrictions but do not accept that such regulations should apply to them. I have some sympathy for the public view that public land should be available to us all. Next one, please. I've owned a four-wheel drive since 1975, but in 1980 decided not to use it on the Evanshead to Ballina Beach, even though I had been using that beach since 1955, sometimes in four-wheel drives. There were three main reasons for that decision. First, the significant decline in shorebirds, pippy and ghost crab populations even then, and damage to the structure of the beach caused by four-wheel drives and motorbike riders. Second, the witnessing of a child almost being killed by a four-wheel driver at Air Force Beach, accelerating at speed once past the entrance track. The child, apparently unaware of the vehicle, was running toward the surf and did not look to the right and left and right again, as you're supposed to do when enjoying the beach or crossing Pitt Street in Sydney, and was almost cleaned up by the driver, who blew the horn without slowing down to warn the child at the last moment. Those at the beach were enraged by his careless behaviour. And third but not least, the loss of amenity of the beach, environment for walkers and fishers, which was frequently disturbed by vehicles passing at speed without care for pedestrians on the beach and who drove into flocks of roosting birds. I felt the best I could do was to demonstrate my behaviour, through my behaviour, that I respected the beach and its integrity by no longer using my four-wheel drive on the beach. No hypocrisy. Clear scientific evidence shows that even low-level off-road vehicle traffic negatively impacts macrovertebrates at sandy beaches. Next. The physical beach environment is changed, and consequently the ability of many species to survive in the face of this disturbance. Keep going. Compaction, rutting and displacement of the sand matrix results in significant decreases in species diversity and density and measurable shifts in community structure on beaches. There is no seasonal recovery, as the beach doesn't have time to recover with year-round traffic. Given a choice between restricting or excluding traffic from our beach, the results of such studies suggest that the latter would be more appropriate to protect the ecological integrity of the beach and ultimately its amenity for future generations. Next. The physical environment of our sandy beaches is becoming intensely modified by human activity. Next. Partly due to the advent of mass tourism. Next. And population growth in coastal areas encouraged by government. Overall, these factors are radically altering the ecology and morphology of coastal ecosystems. The very reason we visit them, keep going, and increasingly coastal beaches are becoming sites of conflict which will not abate. I would argue that in the long run we have no choice but to close the whole Evans Head to Ballina Beach to vehicle use, with some minor exceptions for agency vehicles, professional fishers and Indigenous access. In our view, Council should rely on Section 8A2 decision-making principle C. Council should consider the long-term and cumulative effects of actions on future generations, and D. Council should consider the principles of ecologically sustainable development, that is, using, conserving and enhancing the community's resources so that ecological processes on which life depends are maintained and the total quality of life now and in the future can be increased. I note the recommendations for today's meetings, but ask instead that it be modified so that an agreed position be sought from Ballina Council, Crown Lands and National Parks about closure of the entire beach from Evans Head to Ballina, with exemptions for the three agencies I mentioned before, and no exemptions for private special interest groups in the public interest and in keeping with Section 8A of the New South Wales Local Government Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Will you take questions if there's any?
Certainly. Yep.
Has anyone got any questions of Dr. Gates?
Thank you.
No? Thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome. Thank
Have a safe trip home.
you. Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, I will. Thanks.
Councillor, now we move on to apologies. Item 4. We have one from Councillor Simpson, I believe. Got a mover and a seconder, please.
Move that way.
Councillor Hayes and Councillor Humphreys. No. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. Mayoral minute. There is no mayoral minute. Item 5. Confirmations of minutes. 6.1. The ordinary meeting held on the 18th of May. Can I get someone to confirm the accuracy of those, please? Councillor Lyons.
Second.
Second, Councillor Humphreys. Anyone want to talk on the accuracy? No? I'll put that motion then. Carried. Matters arising out of item 7. Matters arising out of the minutes. That meeting. Neil, we'll move on. Declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest?
Mr Mayor, I've got 16.4. I'm the president of Casino Zone Wireless, and 16.5, I'm a resident of the actual street, and I have a non-pecuniary interest in both those.
Are you staying in the room or?
No, if I have a choice, I would plan to leave the room if they
Thank you.
spoken
Just
of.
helps me when I'm running the meeting. Thank you. Petitions nil. Notice of motion is nil. Move on to page 8, councillors. Mayor's report. I'll move my report.
Second.
Councillor Morrissey. Any business arising or questions out of that report?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
On the 27th of May, meeting with Pat Farmer,
Yes.
Broken Hill to Byron Bay run event. Just have an explanation or a little bit more information.
Yes, about 2 or 3 weeks before the 27th, I received a call from Mr Farmer. He's a long-distance runner and an ex-member of Parliament. He's got a very credible history of long-distance running. He's going to organise a run from Broken Hill to Byron Bay. It's, I think, 1,600 kilometres, around that. They'll run about 160 kilometres roughly. There'll be 2 teams, one from America and one from Australia. They'll be backed up by the Army. They've got men and women in the teams. And it's due to be about late August. He asked me, he said, look, we're going to do a reconnaissance trip. And there was 4 people in that trip, some Army members. And he said, we're just going to talk to all the mayors and the council, general managers and that about their community and what we can do for them. They would like to stay at the showground, and that'll be arranged. And he said, we'll have TV crews, it'll be good publicity and that. And he wanted to have a meeting and wanted to know a bit about casino, and he happened to be in the area of Beef Week. And I said, well, if you can make your trip arranged with the breakfast with the butchers, you'll get a good idea of what our community's about. So he tried to get here on that Thursday night, but they got held up in Tenterfield, and they left up there about 6 o'clock in the morning to drive to casino to do Beef Week with breakfast with the butchers at Beef Week. So the general manager and I met him actually in the street and had a good talk to him. The general manager talked a bit longer, met with him a bit longer. I had to go and judge the sausage competition. So I think the general manager, did you want to comment? He's going to contact us again, I think.
It's just a positive event. It's obviously to raise funds, and as we do, we'll work with them to provide them with a base camp at the showground that evening, and runs a couple of local events. So we basically just it was good to meet them and open the door, and they'll be in touch with us when they lock in their final details, and we'll work with them to make sure. And then obviously once that's confirmed, we'll communicate that opportunity to the community. I think part of it is also around the Army that's supporting them, is the opportunity for youth to come and engage with Army representatives as well. So it's a bit of a promo for the Army as another aspect to it. So it should be a good visit, a good thing to be involved in. Will get us some good coverage for our area.
Thank you to both of you. And that's the only one I've got this month.
Thank you.
I've got a question or a comment. The Beef Week Gala dinner on the 22nd, apparently, is that where you delivered your speech? The Mayor's delivered a speech at that dinner, and it was quite well received. I was listening to local media on the following morning, and Janelle Saffron was on local radio, and she actually said that it was the most heartfelt speech that she'd seen in a political career, and it was a true indicative of the community that was represented that night, and it was appropriate for the time that we've just been through with the disasters that we faced. So I'd like to congratulate you on that speech, and with your permission, I'd like to see that published somewhere, maybe in these minutes, if you agree.
It's, there was one thing wrong with it. It was a very long speech, but I think on the night those words needed to be said. But I know there were a few people in the room wanting me to wind it up. But in saying that, it was long, but reflecting back on it, I'd do it again. Because I think what we've been through, our community, and it was a message there that it's not all doom and gloom. We've got a rosy future in Richmond Valley, and I wanted that to come through loud and clear. So.
Things like that disappear. I think it should be printed somewhere, and then maybe in the minutes of this meeting, if you agree.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other, and thanks for that comment. Any other items? I'll put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. Delegates' reports, nil. Matters determined without debate. Has any councillors any items?
14.2 and 16.6.
14.2 and 16.2? Sorry?
16.6.
16.6. Other councillors? No? All right, I've got 14.1. 14.2 is gone. 15.1. 16.1. 16.3 and 16.5. Does that cover all the planning items, Mr. General Manager, that we have to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I think it's left us with 14.3, 16.2 and 16.4.
Yep. So I need a motion, please, to adopt 14.3, 16.2 and 16.4. Is that correct? Yep. Please, can I get a motion for that?
Move that way.
Seconder? Councillor Lyons. Put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. (14.1). I'll move that. Seconder?
Second.
Councillor Morrissey. Councillors, this is the fifth, or this will be the fifth and final budget and associated documents this current council will deliver. It is a very sound budget and if adopted, will be the largest ever of Richmond Valley Council. $67.6 million and a capital works program of $46.8 million. Council advertised the draft documents for 28 days and I note there were no submissions. I will take this as a vote of endorsement from our residents. When Council adopted the Richmond Valley Community Strategic Plan in June 2017, there was great community support, and I quote, for Council to manage financial services and procurement practice to enable Council's financial sustainability. This Council has followed their wishes and delivered an unrestricted funds cash surplus for 5 years, including this budget of $306,000 and estimates to continue in coming years. I believe this current council is handing over a financially stable and fit for the future organisation to the incoming council after the September elections, and I'd just like to say well done to everyone. And in saying that, I acknowledge and recognise and thank all council staff for their endeavours in making this positive outcome achievable over the term of the council. And Mr. General Manager, I was going to ask you to pass that message on, but just before the meeting I did ask the General Manager to, I want to put it in an official recommendation. So I'd like to, with the concurrence of my seconder, add a part extra to the recommendation, part 5, And Mr General Manager, could you read that, please?
So just proposing that the General Manager thanks all staff on behalf of Council for the preparation of the 2021-22 budget and their contribution to the delivery of our programs and projects over the last 5 financial years.
Accept that?
Accept
it.
it, Mr Mayor.
Councillors, I just think that needs to be done. This council has achieved a lot in those 5 years, especially financially, but we've been through a lot, and to deliver our last budget with the biggest ever, not only the budget but the capital works, I think that's a good outcome for our community. And as I said, we're leaving this organisation, we'll be handing it over to the incoming council in very, very strong and sound financially position. So, any other councillors like to speak? No? We have that. It's all written. Okay. Almost there. Yep. All right, councillors, to no other speakers, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. (14.2), Councillor Lyons.
Thank you. So I do want to speak about this. Do I need a seconder for that?
Sorry?
So I want to speak about this and suggest some changes. Do I need to ask for a seconder?
You need to move a motion and then you get a seconder.
Yeah. So I want to speak first.
No, if you can, it's your call, so you can move whatever you want to move now. Yeah. And then you'll get then you need to get a seconder.
Yeah. Thank you. Following on from listening to Richard Gates today, I think it's really coming down to the crunch line that instead of talking and talking, I think it's about time that we actually put in place closing the beaches finally. So maybe adding an extra dot point or adding something to the authorising, seeking an agreed position between the 4 land managers, addressing future exemptions with a serious look at closing the beaches, making it a priority, something along those lines. So. No, not really. I was thinking on my foot. Yep, looks good. Yep, thank you. Maybe hook it into 2.
can't recall when we adopted the previous position where we stopped on the coffee.
Pretty good.
You right with that, councillor Lyon?
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Can I get
Mayor.
is there a seconder there for that? Second call, seconder? Third? It lapses for the want of a seconder, sorry. And now I need a motion, please, from someone.
I'd like to move the original recommendation.
Second.
That's moved councillor Hayes and seconded councillor Cornish. Councillor Hayes.
Look, why I appreciate Dr Gates coming and presenting to us today and the protection of the environment and everything that possibly could happen and probably will happen in the future up there. I think it's too early to close the beach at this stage. I think we should go with this recommendation, find out what comes back to council in the report, then make those kind of decisions at that point in time, if need to be. After taking on board, what comes out of those meetings, that contact.
Thank you. Any other speakers? As the seconder, councillor Cornish.
Yeah, basically what Councillor Hayes said. I appreciate Councillor Lyons and Dr Gates's view and passion on the situation, but I think the recommendation proposed is quite methodical, and I think it would just be jumping the gun if we were to not pursue this recommendation here. At least wait and see what the report says when it comes back. So.
Councillor Lyons.
My reasons for bringing this to a head today is we seem to be chasing our tails over and over and over. I received a letter from an elderly gentleman who does not live in our valley at all. He's not in our council LGA at all. And he's a 78-year-old guy who talks about how he loves fishing and how over the time it's been kind of destroyed because of the four-wheel drives, the amount of traffic that are on the beaches. And he thinks it's time that we actually started looking. Some of his things was, I've loved fishing all my life and I'm now 78. I love nothing more than walking along the beach, admiring the wildlife, including the pied oyster catchers, and trying to catch a fish. When you're fishing on the beach, you meet many other people who just love casting a line off. It's good for mental health, it's an unusual pastime, it's the world's most popular participant pastime for both young and old. Anyone can afford to do it. And, you know, it's just something that we really need to start appreciating and respecting, that our beaches are there for everyone. The four-wheel drives have had more than a fair go. And, you know, it's obvious from the photos that are within our report, and as well as what Richard Gates showed us, that the beaches, you know, people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. You know, the people are just getting really, really fed up and frustrated that they can't go to the beach and just enjoy the beach. I'm happy to have people drive down to the beach and get out and fish. I don't want to see the elderly, the disabled, or, you know, the professional fishers or the Indigenous people being stopped. But I do want to see something put in place so that the four-wheel drives aren't allowed to go speeding up and down. You know, we are asking the police an awful lot to carry out because we're too busy twiddling our thumbs. We're putting the responsibility onto national parks, we're putting the responsibility onto the police, and we're putting the responsibility onto our rangers. But we're not backing them. You know, everyone wants, well, backing in a sense, let's get the four-wheel drives off the beaches. You know, we're getting them to do the work, when why don't we just stop it and say no? Let's, you know, make it a clear thing. Possibly taking it back to seeking an agreed position, maybe we can alter that and include something along the lines of, if evidence comes back that the best thing is to shut the beach, then we look at doing that quickly or something. I don't know.
That now would have to be an amendment.
Yeah, is that possible to put an amendment?
Well, you can move an amendment, yes. And
Well,
then
can I move that amendment so that part 2 of the original motion is something put in, and depending on the reports, look towards further discussions at closing the beaches, and also whether or not we should be looking at permits. Make it a permit that doesn't cost our local residents anything, and then start doing charging. So that if people want to come and use the beaches, then they're actually going to pay for the privilege of driving on our beaches, and money can be accumulated in a fund to repair damage.
You'll have to get permission off Councillor Hayes to include that, but this item is about the Boundary Creek beach access.
Yeah, but it applies to everything.
Well, the letter that will be written will be about Taballina and the Boundary Creek access. Is that correct, Mr. General Manager? Yes, and that's what the item is about. Boundary Creek, 14.2, Boundary Creek beach access. If you would have to add to a separate 4 to change that, if Councillor Hayes doesn't accept that, but it is about Boundary Creek.
I can see what you're getting to, but I think we need to wait until this report comes back and we can make that decision then. It's going to be no different. This report's still going to come back whether we change that recommendation or not. Wait till it comes back, have a look at the results of it, and then you've got all the opportunity in the world then to, and probably more evidence to say, close the beach. Let's look at closing the beach, but I wouldn't support it until then. Okay?
Councillor Lyons, we've just proposed an amendment in response to your request there, so we've just added, if you wanted to move an amendment, that's what it could be. So you would need to move that as a separate amendment unless you get the agreement of Councillor Hayes and Cornish.
I still want to leave the recommendation as it's written in the business paper for now. So I don't support that. Not at this point, Jill.
You have the opportunity to move that amendment, but then you will require a seconder.
I move that and get a seconder, please.
I have an amendment which is written I get a seconder? Second? Third call? It lapses for the want of a seconder. We've had, for the motion, we've had 2 speakers, the mover and the seconder, and we've had 1 speaker against, Councillor Lyons. Any other speakers? No other speakers, and would you like the right of reply?
Just close up on it. Look, the recommendation as written, we've taken a long time to get to that. We've fuddled around with it. We've got to a point where we need more information. We need to follow this through, wait till it comes back to council, and then if there's any more to do with beach closures or anything at that time, I think that's the time to bring it to a head. But it's too early. We need to explore every avenue we got. You know? And look, the only other thing that comes to my mind is this whole report. The biggest thing that sticks in my mind now is the safety aspect of getting on and off the beach at Broadwater. I think that's going to end up being an issue if that gets opened again. So that'll be another thing we'll have to look at that point in time as well.
Okay. Thank you. That closes the debate. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. Against? Against? Yep. So we have Councillor Lyons voting against. (15.1). Councillors, I'll move that. I called it. It's only to ask a question. Seconder?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey. Councillors, I agree with the report, but if you go to page 23, I'd just note there the first box with the figures in it. You might notice that there's $2 million in new investments. The second box there was $4 million in maturities. I'd just like to know, was the $2 million that extra that came to mature, was it reinvested or was it used for council purposes? Mr. General Manager?
I'm happy for our CFO to respond to that, or Director Organisational Services.
Through you, Mr Mayor. That $2 million was actually placed with Treasury Corporation in the new long-term fund. If you remember last month, we did some adjustments to the investment policy to allow us to put some money into New South Wales Treasury Corp's long-term investment fund, and that $2 million was put in there. As stated in the report, we're really struggling at the moment to get decent rates from banks on floating rate notes and term deposits. We're getting higher rates from our higher interest bank accounts than we are getting offered because banks are limiting what money they're actually taking. So yeah, it's a difficult situation to be in for investing.
Thank you. I noted on top of that page 23 it mentions about the New South Wales Treasury Corporation, but I was just wondering where that $2 million went. Okay. Thank you. Any other speakers? Put that to motion then. All those in favour? Carried. Unanimous. Sorry? I moved it and Councillor Morrissey seconded it. Yep. Yep.
I heard that.
Sorry. 16.1 on page 25. I'll move that. Seconder?
Second.
Councillor Hayes. Councillors, I agree with this. We've had some submissions and councils has adjusted on some occasions where we could, and I agree with the double-storey setback change, and I need to call it because it's a planning matter. That's the main reason. But if there's any other councillors like to speak, feel welcome.
Yeah, the changes they've made there, to satisfy some of the information they received from the public, some of the submissions, the side setback height adjustment to the 3.5 metres and the 1 in 4 slope is, I think is adequate. And look, I wouldn't have been unhappy if they went with any of those 3 green lines on there. I think they're all quite, better than what it was. Yeah, I think it's a good result.
Councillor Humphries?
Mr Mayor, I just had a general comment to make, given that this was a review of the DCP 2015, and most of it wasn't amended. The part that was looked at was the Part A, the residential development section, and I believe that we've gone over that with a fine-tooth comb, and the 5 submissions that were also were received, they were actually treated with the same thoroughness, a measure of thoroughness. So I support the recommendation, and I would recognise the experience shown by the staff and their concern for the amenity of the villages. I had this thought that it reminded me that we were looking at how to structure villages and our towns like you'd style, like you'd style something, actually giving places a personality. So I think this was a really good outcome, and just compliment everyone for their high standard and their work ethic. Thank you.
Any other speakers? I'd also, in closing then, I'd just like to say I think the rural setbacks, some of those submissions was pretty spot on, and I support what we've done to appease them also. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. .2 didn't get called. It's gone. 16.3. On page 35. I'll move that. Can I get a seconder, please?
Second.
Councillor Cornish. Council, I call this for a couple of reasons. One, it had a lot of community input, and especially on social media, but I'm happy with the recommendation. I need to put Councillor Cornish, I need to add a part 3. Sorry, I meant to do this to start with. And the part 3 is that the artwork submitted by Apparition Media be considered in future Richmond Valley Council public artworks. You happy with that? And the reason I've put that in is because Apparition Media's submission was very strongly supported on social media, and they also were the second highest in the submission. So I think that art, our community were very much in favour of it, and I'd hate to see that lost. And if there's an opportunity at a later date that artwork be considered by a future council. Look, this artwork, I think, really typifies casino's history, and that's what part of the brief was, to develop a large mural around the top section of the reservoir to create a unique statement about the evolving identity of casino and its community, and I believe it does that very well. It has got some Aboriginal heritage there. It's got some, as we know, the platypus pool is in the river. It's also some wildlife from the wetlands, and I had a comment to me that there's no black swans around here. Well, I actually purposely drove out, and the first couple of birds I seen was black swans at the wetlands. And it has some history of European settlement. There's a man with his dog. That could be a drover, a dairy farmer. Most people have had a dog in their life. I think it's a great thing. We have some cropping, and for many, many years, cropping's been a big part of our regional community. And we have Riverina here that uses a lot of that grain. And I'm pleased, like the sunflowers haven't been here long, but they're a really good picture, and so I think that will lighten it up too. And I was a bit concerned about the mixing of the joining up the paintings, but the General Manager assures me that that can be looked at from the artist. And I noticed that some of the comments will be taken into consideration from the submissions. That's very positive, because a lot of artists sometimes don't like to do that. But also what's been lost in the water tower work is the scenic and heritage trail, and it hasn't got much publicity, but I think that is going to be a really, really beneficial for our region. It's a walkway that hooks up to a lot of the historical parts of our casino, and I just think that it will be, with the centrepiece, the water tower, and the walk heritage trail, and it has a local Aboriginal artist, Charlie Cordial. He was commissioned to provide a painting, an integral piece for the signages of that. So I just think this will be a big attraction for visitors to our area, and I think it will just finish off the when people come here on the future rail trail. I think it will all add to that. So I don't know if you want to make a couple of comments, Mr. General Manager. Well, I'll ask you a question. Some of the artwork, the submissions, changes, have you got any input into that?
Some of the changes that actually Director Jones might, I think, checked up on a couple of those things, so you might want to add to that. Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So some of the suggested changes, I presume you're referring to the putting a kangaroo and a horse person into in the murals. That's been discussed with the artists. They're happy to look at that, and also happy to adjust to make sure that the various panels are facing in the most appropriate direction. So those changes or suggestions have been provided to the artists in conversations, and they're more than willing to have a look at that.
And joining the 4 panels, they can...
I understand there's no issues from an artist's an artist's impression and how they're going to do that. They say that's not going to be a problem, and they'd be able to achieve that also. So I can also give you a brief update while I have the mic, is that the proposed work is going to be starting in mid-July, and we are hoping to have that finished by the end of August. So we'll see something happening there very soon. There's been a lot of site preparations. We have put some fencing around the bottom of the reservoir, and done some paving work, and that was part of another a project for site security, which has dovetailed into this mural project also. So there'll be some pressure cleaning of the water tower in the near future. We're gaining quotes at the moment, and then the artists will be ready to go in mid-July.
Thank you. And it's very hot topic out there. I'm getting a lot of feedback and asking when it's going to happen, and if still people think it's not going to happen, but it is. And I think it'll be very well received by our community. Any other speakers?
Just a question. On page 37, and all the information that Angela's just given us, the joining of the paintings, the inclusion of the kangaroo and the inclusion of the horse, it says feedback received on the initial concepts will be passed on to the successful artists for consideration and incorporation in the final designs, which is great, which will be provided to councillors for a final review before commencement. So we're commencing in mid-July, so that'll come to our information session just prior, will it? And that'll show us a detailed final overview of what it's going to be?
Yes.
That's how I understand it?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
You'll get one more shot at it. But you won't need to do anything to it. It'll be perfect, and then we'll get it painted.
Any other speakers? Councillor Humphries.
So the emu took a dive, did he? Mr Mayor, I just wanted to say that we were certainly spoilt for choice, and I did always think it would come down to the two, the Bright Side and the Apparition Media. The colours in that one were just divine, so I'm more than happy to include recommendation number 3. The mural itself it's uplifting, and it's not just the sunflowers that make it make you smile. The whole thing does. I've been banging on about a platypus for a while, so I'm extremely happy to see that big fat face of that platypus on the water tower. Certainly, it is going to be, you know, the centrepiece of the scenic and heritage trail. And if I could, I would really, I think I might have, wasn't meant to, but I think I may have seen Charlie Caldwell's artwork, and I would love it if perhaps I did accidentally see it. I would love it if councillors, or if I didn't, if we could see that work, if we could have an idea of, you know, how that's shaping up, not to put our 2 cents worth in, just to have a look at it and appreciate it, if possible. Thanks.
Sure, we can arrange. I actually spotted it myself today for the first time, and it is good. Good colours, and yeah, so I'm sure we can bring something along to the July info session.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillors, look, I'm very excited over this. This has been talked about as the start of the reports, as it's been mentioned around casino for many, many decades, and it's great to see that it's going to occur. Some people, no doubt, what we put there will not like it, but the majority feedback I'm getting, some people just want something there and they're happy, and they've looked at all this, the proposed artwork, and anything, you know, is good out of that. So I'm pleased with it. The Apparition Media one, I think was great, and it leaves us there for the future. And it's not easy putting something like this out. Public art is a very controversial, because everyone likes different things, but I would hope that our community gets behind this and is real happy. And in saying that, it hasn't been hard delivering this, and I'd like to congratulate the Manager for Communication, Tourism and Events, Sharon Davidson, on her efforts in delivering this project to us, and I look forward to it happening. So I'll put that motion now. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. 16.5, I believe we have a, yeah, just, yep. Councillors, I'll move that. If I have a seconder, please.
Second.
Can I? We have an amendment. Mr General Manager, you'd like to put that up on the board or read it, please?
Yeah, just to propose that we remove the recommendation after the word, after Gum Drive. Just that this resolution is used in a legal context with gazettal, and it's better if it doesn't include the actual locality.
So we take away for the North
So just
Casino
take
Rural
off-
Residential
That's
Estate.
right, take off for the North.
So councillors, can you put your line through that, please?
And the other point to make is that Barang Drive and Flooded Gum Drive aren't part of the North Casino, so there's a couple of reasons why we needed to either add other localities or remove them. Advice from our team that deals with this is to just remove that. Obviously, the detail of where these roads are is spelt out in detail in the body of this report, which is available publicly.
You happy with that, Councillor Morrissey?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, I'll just very quickly say that it's been out to public consultation, these. It's the best feedback we've got, and we're abiding by their community's wishes. So, any other speakers? No? I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. 16.6, Richmond Park Plan of Management on page 45. Councillor Lyons.
I move the recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. Basically, I only called this.
I need a
just-
second. Oh, sorry. Humphries. Thank you. Councillor Lyons.
Basically, I called this just to get some clarification for those who may be listening in today and sitting in the gallery as to why members of the Jabberoo Wetland, Ginnibiinga Wetland Group were not asked for any input into this draft plan. And secondly, also why the draft plan has come to us but hasn't gone out to the general public for submissions until after the ministerial approval. And I have a question. Following the ministerial approval, once community submissions come in, or if they do, come in to council, will they be able to be approved by councillors, or does that then have to go back to the minister for a second approval?
I will, but I'll just answer one of those questions. I think in the report on page 45 it said it's the draft plan, it has to be referred to the minister prior to public exhibition. So once it's done that, then it will go out to public exhibition. Okay? But Councillor...
It was more
Director Jones?
clarifying for others who aren't able to read the paperwork.
Okay, could you answer them?
Okay, through you, Mr Mayor. So with regards to your first question, Councillor Lyons, is why the Wetlands Group were not consulted as part of this part of the long process that we're going through. The decision was made that we would consult directly with the stakeholders that have tenure over this reserve and parcel of land, so the likes of the Casino Golf Club, the Greyhound Racing Club, Pacific Coast Railway Society and the local Aboriginal Land Group and the New South Wales Biodiversity Trust. So they're the actual stakeholders that have tenure over the land. As the resolution points out, is we've done a draft. It needs to go off to the minister for their approval before we put it on public exhibition. Once the documents are on public exhibition, we obviously be calling for submissions. Those submissions will be taken into consideration before the plan will come back to council for a formal resolution to adopt it. So we're at the mercy of legislation, so we'll get this off to the minister pending the resolution this evening, and I can't give any guarantees of how long that may or may not take. I'm hoping it's going to be a matter of weeks or a month or two, but it could take longer. We'll certainly be advocating for it to be done as quickly as possible. Next part of your question, you have to refresh my memory.
There's a lot. It was once community submissions are received by council, well, if they are, do they come to council to be approved? And if there are any changes to the draft plan that the minister's already approved, do any other changes go back to be re-approved by the minister?
I had a conversation with our staff member who deals with these this week, and the answer was no, it doesn't have to go back to the minister again. I think the first check of the minister is to make sure that the draft plan of management meets the statutory requirements for a plan of management. So that's obviously why it goes to the minister at the first stage. And that's again why it's not publicly available, because we need to give the minister the opportunity to provide us with any advice before we then go out publicly. So that's the process we're working through. We'll go through the public consultation. It's then up to council to consider whether or take that feedback into account and determine whether there needs to be any changes to the plan of management. So that's the process we're working through. Once we go to a public consultation point, once we get feedback from the minister, we'll make that clear in any consultation information that we provide to the community, so that it's clear to them what the process is from then.
Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Mr
Councillor
Mayor,
Humphries?
I just feel that on page 46 it outlines you know, the aims, the benefits of the master plan. So for all those benefits, We really need to get this to the minister, get it back, and you know, start working towards what an asset and, you know, another tourist development area, an environmental area, and everything. Like, it's got so much going for it. We need to get it. The time is now to get this going as well.
I'll just make one more comment just around timeframes. We'll certainly do what we can for this to happen quickly, but obviously when you send something off to ministers, they're obviously busy people and it can take a bit of time. A previous plan of management that we submitted to the minister did take 4 months for that approval to come through. So I think, again, obviously we've got people interested in this matter viewing online. Just want to manage expectations that it can take 4 months or more. Hopefully it doesn't. If it's a good document that addresses all the requirements, hopefully we can get it back to us in a shorter space of time. But I just think it's important to highlight we are sort of at the mercy of a busy New South Wales government.
And I guess question, Mr Mayor, that gives us time to find that $10,000 to $15,000, the unfunded. Yeah.
Where would that be likely to come from?
Council's operational budget. So we would need to make decisions depending on as things occur through quarterly reviews. You know, we'll certainly look for opportunities where we might be able to identify some funds for that. If that opportunity arises, we'll certainly let you know that. But obviously we need to get the plan of management done first, so one step at a time. Hopefully we can get that done, you know, before the end of this calendar year. That would be nice, and then we can move into getting master plans done.
Would there be any environmental grants for master plans on this type of?
Look, they tend to be less. Grants tend to be more about doing things and infrastructure and making improvements generally, and I suppose that's been our success as a council over the last few years, is to have master plans done. So it is worth the investment to get a master plan done, and then you're in a stronger position to be successful with grant funding. So my suggestion is that we will look to find some funds to do a master plan when we're ready to do that, so that as a grant opportunities arise, we can secure some funding for improving the wetlands. I mean, it's identified in our community strategic plan as an important project, and it's one that we want to, you know, continue to improve.
Other speakers? Put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. Page 47, item 17, matters for information. Got a mover, please? Morrissey.
Second.
Councillor Lyons, second. Councillor Morrissey.
Mr Mayor, page 55, item 17.1. Can you tell me where Finlay Park is, please?
Yeah, it's out near Lakeside Drive in the development out there. That was actually the name of one of the developers. That Any other speakers?
Yeah, Mr Mayor. Just a comment on how good the figures are for the Coraki Riverside Caravan Park. Just a comment about that, that's all. And one more. Through you, Mr Mayor, I just want to say what a miserable excuse letter written by the ANZ Bank.
Well, you've taken a couple of my items I was going to talk about. Yeah, the ANZ Bank's replies, but just a draft, very disappointing. Yeah. And the letter to Rouse on the Dunoon Dam to go back into the investigations, I think that was very well written. So, did you pass that on with a letter writer, please? I know you signed it, but whoever was involved in that.
What are you saying?
I'm sure you got some advice of some other staff members.
I think our leader strategy for the craft in that letter, and also just out of interest, I did do I think it was on ABC Radio this morning, so that letter did get picked up by the media.
Yep.
And some requests. Obviously, it is a topical issue for the Northern Rivers, and I think that letter did state our position very clearly. And obviously, A few people took note of it.
It's incredibly well written.
And I did hear that interview actually, and the message is Richmond Valley is not saying to build the dam, it's saying to do the investigations like every other alternative. That's all that needs to be done. If it comes out as not being viable, well, it doesn't get done. So, I'd also, you finished, Councillor Morrissey? Yep. I'd also like to mention about the south wall at Evanshead. It is a concern, and how the state government can just walk away from their responsibility. I think the letter needed to be written, and hopefully we can get a favourable response from that one also. The caravan park, I agree, Councillor Morrissey, it come through a few floods this year, peak time, so it'll come back like that, and it's got some forward bookings. I did ask the General Manager for the future council if maybe that could be like a report every 6 months and with some actual figures and budgets and things like that in it in the future, but that's for another day. I think that'd be good for the councillors to have a good look at that. It's a great asset for our region, and I can only see it getting more and more patronism, so yeah. Which one? Is it in here? Is it in here? Okay. Yeah, and I'll just say that the caravan park, recently there's been a Chamber of Commerce going to be started up down there, and they had an inaugural night the other night. It was very well supported. I'd say well over 50 people, and I think that chamber will be relying on the caravan park a lot for the future of Coraki, so to get some tourism. And then it was a very positive meeting, and council looks forward to having a great relationship and positive relationship with those in the future. Any other? Councillor Morrissey, right, a reply.
Mr Mayor, I probably just held back a little bit on what my real thoughts are of the ANZ Bank.
I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. Page 83, item 18. Questions on notice, we have nil. 19, any more questions for the next meeting in writing? Nil. Page 84, matters referred to closed council. I need a motion to go into closed council.
Move.
Councillor Morrissey. Councillor Lyons. Mr General Manager, has there been any written representation made regarding this meeting going into closed council?
No, none received.
Is there any verbal representation from the members of the public? No members of the public. I'll take that as a no. I'll move that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Manager, could you read the resolutions of closed council, please?
So in item 20.1, tender VP 242344, detailed design of casino showground precinct. Council resolved to decline all submissions received for tender VP 242344, detailed design of casino showground precinct, due to all submissions being higher than the budget allocated for the works. Second point, determines not to call fresh tenders as submissions received were of sufficient number and quality to make a new tender process unwarranted. 3, applies clause 178 brackets 3E of the Local Government General Regulation 2005 to authorise the General Manager to enter into direct negotiations with nominated tenderers with a view to obtaining works within the available budget and to finalise the terms of the contract or agreement, including affixing the seal of council where necessary. And item point 4 notes that the outcomes of the negotiations be reported to council for information. Who's next?
In item 20.2, tender VP 243179, upgrade of the Casino Racing Club sand and grass tracks. That Council 1 declines all submissions received for tender VP 243179, upgrade of the Casino Racing Club sand and grass tracks, due to all submissions being higher than the budget allocated for the work and potential for variations based on tender response. 2, apply the Local Government General Regulations 2005 under clause 178(3)(e) of the Local Government General Regulation 2005 to authorise the General Manager to enter into negotiation with any person, whether or not the person was a tenderer, with a view to entering into a contract or contracts in relation to the subject matter of the tender, to obtain the works within the available budget and to affix the seal of council where necessary. 3, note that the outcomes of the negotiations be reported to council for information.
Thank you. 20.3.
In the matter 20.3, tender VP 232433, the design and construct of a bridge, JTR Smalls, Old Tenterfield Road. Council resolved 1, awards a tender for the design and construction of JTR Smalls Bridge Corokai to Auswide Bridge Rail and Civil Proprietary Limited at the assessed tender rate of $501,325.45 exclusive of GST, and 2, authorises the General Manager to enter into and endorse relevant contracts and documents, including affixing the council seal where appropriate, generally in accordance with the details contained within this report.
20.4.
20.4, tender VP 240912, Reynolds Road Industrial Subdivision Sewer Pump Station and Rising Main. That council accepts the tender from Civil CS Proprietary Limited, which represents the best value for council, at $1,115,601.22, exclusive of GST, and 2, the General Manager be authorised to negotiate and finalise the terms and conditions of any contract or agreement in line with the content of this report and the available budget, and affixing the seal of council where necessary.
Item 20.5, tender VP 242338, sewer pump station 604 renewal works. Council resolved. Number 1, council accept the tender from Willow and Sparrow Proprietary Limited that represents best value for money at $271,878 exclusive of GST. Number 2, that council authorise the General Manager to enter into and endorse relevant contracts and documents, including affixing the seal of council where appropriate, generally in accordance with details contained in this report.
Thank you. And 20.6, Mr General Manager.
Yeah, item 20.6, which is a concealed water leak matter. Council resolved to approve the concealed leak claim and approves a write-off as set out in the report under the terms of its policy. And the second point, approves a further write-off as set out in this report in response to the owner's claim of financial hardship.
Thank you. That concludes the meeting. Thank you everyone who's been watching on the live stream, and to staff and councillors, have a safe trip home, and that closes the meeting. Thank you.